Alright, started the video. I don't know if I'm really ready. Don't really know which direction I want to take here, but anyway, I'm going to respond to Broken Mech a couple of videos. So his first one is a response to Boo Boo Nation on this objective morality, which could be called absolute morality, or the truth about these value equations, however you want to describe it. But anyway, we'll get on to that. But it is related to this whole idea of memes, ideas, concepts, what human beings are genetically and what we are because of what we've evolved in terms of our brain. So anyway, in his second video he did on the meme subject, he referenced Susan Blackmire. Yes, I think that's it. But anyway, you know, a TED Talks video that I had seen it in the past, and so I did watch it again. And yeah, there's lots to gripe about. The idea that memes are out there evolving is one idea. I think I'm all for it. But it's a whole different kind of evolution. It's not a environmental selection process that has anything to do with the kind of evolution that's taking place for us physically. Two entirely different concepts of evolution, dictated by a different set of rules. Ideas aren't going to they don't spread genetically. You don't give birth to an idea and have it grow up and live in society and propagate itself. The ideas have to meet a standard. I can't just come up with some dumb idea like you know, throw a rock in the air and let it land on your head and it'll give you special powers. Now that idea is going to go absolutely nowhere because it's going to be selected out by a standard, and the standard is going to be applied by a kind of logic. And that's the way our brain is formulated. Alright, so there's so many things to get to. You know, in her video, she pointed out this thing about women and childbirth and our bigger brains. Everybody's always talking about our bigger brains, like somehow our brains are 100 times bigger than all the other mammals. And it's just not true. Our brains are a little tiny bit bigger. And what changed it for women having this terrible problem with childbirth is the fact that, I mean, a baby's head isn't all that big. I mean, the problem was that, yeah, their pelvis changed, okay? I mean, we went from being, you know, four-legged animals to being two-legged animals. And that was a huge change. And it bent and distorted the pelvis and fucked up the birth canal, and that whole thing got all rearranged, and that's the problem. And then the second issue, the reason why babies themselves are cripply little monsters, so anemic, so crappy, their little wobbly head on their neck and the whole thing. The reason why they're configured that way, they're so bad physically, is first because they don't go a full term, and second, yeah, we ended up through our intelligence being able to take care of them better, to protect them. We built shelters and we lived in caves and we did things that made it possible for babies to be more survivable, and that made them weaker. That's the way evolution works, okay? I mean, evolutionarily, every time you put an asset in, you protect something, you're going to make it weaker, because now it doesn't have to meet the survival of the fittest standard anymore. Fitness is lowered. All right, so yeah, we take out your appendix, and that means that, you know, your kid isn't going to inherit your medical technology. It's going to inherit your shitty appendix, okay, the one you had removed. It's not going to inherit immunity from appendicitis. It's going to likely inherit more likelihood to have appendicitis. So every time we find a pill or a mechanism to make us survive, to help us survive, we make ourselves weaker. And that's just what's happened over time. Is, yeah, human babies have gotten incredibly feeble, and the birth process has become more and more difficult because we keep assisting it. We keep creating mechanisms to make birth possible in circumstances that should have failed. So every time we do a cesarean section or all this other stuff, we're just making it harder on the next generation to give birth naturally. And that's how the evolution has worked, and that's why there's this problem. So it's right there, this simple meme that's been running around that somehow it's this big brain thing. No, our intelligence is not the product of a big brain. All right, we had the big brain before we had the intelligence, you dummies. Okay, we had the same size skull 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, the same percentage of brain to body weight. So what changed wasn't how big our brain was. What changed was what we put in the brain. And what changed from us from other animals, what made us distinct from them, was not more brain. What made us distinct is how the brain functioned, how it ordered the filing cabinets. And so it was able to do this language thing. So we became very focused on these verbal skills and language and conceptualizations, and that provided the foundation for everything that came after that in terms of our capacity to keep increasing our knowledge by writing everything down in books and being able to educate ourselves over a dozen years and do all of that crap. That's what makes us, okay? The big brain is not what makes us. What you could do, I'm going to argue this, and I think I'm going to be proven correct if there is a future. The truth is, I think you can augment, surgically correct any other great ape's brain and probably give them our capacity. You don't have to give them more brain. You have to just change something. There's something a little different in how our brain functions that allows us to do this communication thing. And that's the whole game. The whole game is the communication thing. So anyway, that's just always annoyed me. But there's just so many of these little things that annoy me. Even somebody wrote in some comment about how I'm supposed to take, to be serious this page. I won't bother going through all her comments. Fuck that shit. But anyway, these assholes that keep thinking, now I'm obliged. Somehow I've proven my ignorance by saying you can't trust scientific consensus. Well, you can't, especially now. We've had it demonstrated. In the last year, there's been 2 big releases of scientific discovery that were completely bullshit, okay? I mean, synthetic life, and then, that stupid arsenic crap, and there's been others. It's all this big show crap, okay? Then you get into quantum mechanics, and you can find all kinds of voodoo going on. It has nothing to do with reality, just a bunch of speculation. That doesn't have anything. It isn't founded on anything but the fact that you can't immediately disprove it just because it's so convoluted. But it is disprovable. Anyway, what do I want to get to here? Yeah. So just to finish up on her and this meme thing, and teams as she calls them, which I don't think she made that connection at all. We don't reproduce our ideas, so teams can't use us to reproduce, okay? Because it doesn't really work that way, okay? We don't create a copy of ourselves with our ideas, okay? A kid is born in these open territory. Any meme can get into that kid, all right? It's not owned by the parent. So we see that demonstrated all the time, every fucking day. The generation gap and the dissimilarity between parents and their children in terms of what memes get in their heads, what ideas motivate them and drive them. So yeah, memes they don't need us to reproduce. They don't need us to create the reproduction. Certainly society has to create new births, and that's going to happen. So that has just nothing to do with memes. They're just not interested in the replication thing in that sense. They're only interested in the viral thing, where they infect other people. So memes are doing the viral thing. They're doing the infection thing. They're not doing the replicate through thing. They're just using each individual to spread it, but it's not. It doesn't spread the same way. So you just can't metaphor everything. So these metaphors just aren't going to work because you can't metaphor it to these other circumstances very well. It's not a good analogy or whatever. Yeah, because again, I'm going to argue that there's a logic here. Okay, our brains are meant to be modelers of the world. As soon as we were able to ask a question, then we had the will to answer it. We had the motivation to answer it. And that's what we do. We ask questions and we answer them. We unveil the truth circumstance. We find out how to control, and you control through understanding. And that's what our brain is oriented to doing. It is dictated largely by logic, and the only way you break the logic is breaking the premises. So yeah, if you give somebody a bad piece of information that's fundamental, it's a foundational piece of information like God or some other crap, then you'll defeat the logic. You'll break it all the way up the chain, because the foundation will be shit. And it's just trying to weed, our knowledge base of the crap and to fertilize the solid ideas. And I'm going to argue that much of the resistance to the simple argument I'm making is only there because there is already a pre-existing idea that people won't let go of. And until they let go of that idea, there's no way they're going to be able to see some other idea. You can't look at two at the same time kind of thing, or both won't fit in the same brain, or however you want to metaphor that. Yeah, they can't coexist. And so until you let go of one, you can't accept the other. And until you accept the other, you're not going to understand how it's valid. So it's a catch-22 in that sense. But everything clears up as soon as you get rid of the fog and the dirt and the mush. It gets a lot easier to build. The logic gets clearer and more solid, is what I would argue. So anyway, Broken Mech guy, we've been doing this argument for a long time over this stupid idea that there is a value truth out there. Okay, it exists. And I'm going to argue that on two different levels. First, just the rational, logical argument from the evidence, but then just the argument from there's no practical possibility of existing, all right, if you don't believe you're living the truth. If you have doubt about your moral code, your ethical judgment, if you think it's just arbitrary and some kind of anybody can just make up anything, I just think it defeats your entire capacity to function. You have to believe you're connecting, what you're doing has a reality and it has a real impact. And if you don't believe that, if you don't believe it matters whether somebody's in pain or they're not in pain, and you don't believe it solidly and certainly, I just don't see how it could possibly motivate you to do anything, anything constructive anyway. And you could just excuse any kind of, just write everything off. You could just be a completely self-indulgent asshole, and there'd be no capacity to recognize the futility and stupidity of that. And I guess that's what you're advocating there. Everybody just be a colossal motherfucking asshole. And yet you'll do it in this way that is just so preposterous. You're all hysterical over this Holocaust discussion and this idea that I have to believe that Adolf Hitler and his clan and all the soldiers all intentionally wanted to exterminate Jews, and that they built these camps and put them in trains and did all this shit because that's how they wanted to shoot them. That's how they wanted to kill them, is in this preposterously expensive, nonsensical way, because they deliberately wanted to exterminate them. They didn't just hate them and want to get them out of their way. They wanted to exterminate them. And because I don't believe that, you'll go on and type your little nasty shit comments all over the place like somehow that's an important thing for me to have to accept. I have to accept that, right? That notion. And yet you won't, you'll deny that means anything. That if I had the same opinion about something else, you'd say, well, that's just nonsense. There's no such thing as an absolute morality or objective or logical morality, so we don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about what he says is right and wrong. I mean, this double standard is just idiotic. How do you generate any of your hysteria over torture? Why is torture relevant in a world where everybody's allowed to be a relativist, where everybody's allowed to discount the meaning of suffering? If suffering doesn't mean anything, objectively, absolutely, definitely, positively, without a fucking goddamn doubt, a reasonable doubt, and that's what this is about, I'll get on that, then what is all this crap? What the fuck are you... How do you fucking impose any judgment on anybody else? How the fuck do you have the arrogance to judge somebody when your judgment is based on something as silly as an opinion you say has no qualification, that you can't possibly qualify? I'm saying we can qualify it. We can qualify the description through the process of logic, and we have the evidence of it. Now, I mean, I can't help you, okay? If you're not capable of seeing the difference between you suffering with smallpox and you eating a fluffernutter, if you can't see the difference between those two events, and you would believe that it would be the same thing no matter which one you do forever, it wouldn't matter. So if you were just dying of smallpox forever, or eating a fluffernutter forever, or having an orgasm, or whatever you want to replace, any positive event, and that it wouldn't matter to you. If you had those two sitting there, you'd say, well, I can't really choose because, I know it's all subjective and meaningless, so it doesn't matter. Give me either one. Either one's fine. Yeah, there's just no hope. There's no conversation to be had. If you can't accept the fundamental truth that that's the source of value in the universe, okay? Is this capacity to be harmed, to suffer, to endure a negative conscious experience, and to be able to describe a negative conscious experience. We can do this. This is not difficult. And that's the value. And all the rest is trying to figure it out, trying to discern through all the clouds and waves and wind and all the rest of it, how to describe that. And yeah, we can't take something as complex. Everything has complex. If I go back in the history and shoot Adolf Hitler's father and prevent Adolf Hitler, okay, it's still an ethical dilemma, even though it seems like it's certain. Yeah, we just don't know. You just don't know whether the World War 5 years later or 10 years later might have still happened, and it might have been won by somebody else, and so it might have gone all horribly wrong. So maybe we had to have Hitler just to prevent the next World War that would have happened if Hitler didn't happen. So these are the complex issues. You can't just simplify it into some kind of simple, this is what you live by. So we have this simple social contract to fill in the blank, to say, okay, well look, we got a social contract that'll give us some kind of foundation, because we can't explicitly answer these questions in every circumstance, because we can't know all the details and we can't know all the circumstances, so we have to make something simple to live by, so that's what we'll do. But it won't be true in all circumstances. It won't be the right answer in all circumstances, but it will be in most circumstances, and that's the best we can do. And so that's what we come up with. Thou shalt not kill. Sometimes we should kill. There's some people that need killing. They really need it really badly. They really badly need to be killed. But yeah, we've decided that it's not a good idea to act on that judgment, because it's such a hard process of figuring out which ones are the ones that really need to be killed. So yeah, it's just our lack of complete information makes what you are demanding impossible. But it's not because there's a lack of information. So I'm not even going to bother playing your video, because just this video will go on forever. But you bring up this torture situation, and there's just no real argument. I mean, it should be, as policy, it should be, yes, you don't torture, okay? You don't. But there's going to be circumstances where it's going to be too clear-cut. All right, it's like having Adolf Hitler at your dinner table. You really have to stick the fork in his eye. You have to do it. I mean, and there's going to be circumstances where there's just no way to avoid it, okay, that it would be rational to do it. I mean, if you knew for a certain fact that there was a guy loose who was going to do something to, say, the water in the Great Lakes to make it undrinkable for 1,000 years, and he's loose, and you have the guy who knows where he is so he can be stopped. You have him. And so all you have to do is get the information. All you have to do is get the information. Where's this other guy? So we can get him and stop him. Okay? It's clear cut. I mean, you have to get the information out of his brain. And it's not going to matter how you do it. You just have to do it. You have to get that information. It would be just ludicrous not to get that information. No matter what you had to do to that thing to get it, you have to get that information. And so, yeah, you're going to put his, if you have to put his nuts in a fucking vice. You got to do it. But I'm not defending torture as policy. I'm saying that there's circumstances where even I will act. Okay, I'll be judge and jury. If there could be a circumstance where I'm going to see somebody who's going to commit a crime, and I'm going to decide, well, I'm going to take him out before he takes somebody else out, or he completes what he's going to do, and I'm going to have to make that judgment. So there could be a circumstance where you say, yeah, I'm going to act proactively, to prevent a greater harm. But as general policy, you say no, thou shalt not. So thou shalt not torture. But yeah, in very small print and in a very low voice, you say, except where it's really fucking necessary. And that's just the truth. And then when you personalize it, it's really easy. I mean, if somebody kidnaps one of my sister's kids or something, and you know, is ransoming him for money, you know, blah blah blah. I mean, yeah, I can find cause then to say, well, fuck these guys. I know these guys are guilty. I know I got one of them, and yeah, I mean, I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna do what I have to fucking goddamn do. Just because that's just the way we're built, okay? And I'm not going to stop until this guy gets, I know he has it, I'm going to get it, all right? But there's a big difference between that and torturing every single prisoner, you know, for any reason whatsoever. These are huge differences. There's points where it's acceptable, rational judgment, and there's points where it's not. And yeah, that's a tricky question. It's a tricky issue of where you draw that line. But I think we know the extremes, and that's all you can do is deal with the extremes. You know, the ones that are solidly on one side of the fence and ones that are solidly on the other side of the fence. And you know, the rules of war, it's solidly on one side of the fence. This is how we have rules. You know, these are rules of the war. You don't kill civilians, you don't do this, you don't do that. These are rules. There are rules to war. And one of the rules is you don't torture prisoners. And that's what we did. And it was wrong. So anyway. But anyway, yeah, you're just tripping over the fact that somehow you're expecting, because we're saying there's an absolute, eventual, total, complete, ethical statement defining and describing our existence as humanity. Just like there's a statement about your individual life. Each one of us as individuals has a net impact on the world, like an Adolf Hitler or something else. We impact the world, and there's a description of that impact. And there will be a description of evolution on planet Earth, an ultimate description. Maybe we'll never read it, no one will ever hear it, but it's there to be uncovered. That's what our brain does. It discovers the goddamn truth. And what I'm arguing here is that the truth, there is a mathematical, structured equation, value equation regarding this whole idea of what we're accomplishing here. How much what the value of our satisfaction of our addictions is versus the value of the pain endured to accomplish it, and that I would argue that we're going to be on the negative side of that. But yeah, just like you can judge an individual's behavior, you can judge their life, not judge it for some stupid purpose, but judge it just as a practical matter, just as pragmatically. This is your effect on the world. The world was this way with you, it was this way without you, and you know, we can to some extent make those judgments. Hitler wasn't a good guy. We can write that on his fucking tombstone. No problem. He wasn't a net friend to the human race. Yeah, so where else am I going with this? Yeah, so anyway, like I said, if I have to, I've already made the videos. There's no point in repeating myself on these subjects. But yeah, logic only works if you have to prime the pump of logic. Maybe that's a good way to put it. Yeah, the logic has to be primed with premises. And if you're unwilling to accept any premises, absolutely no premise, you're saying there's no absolute truth about anything, really. I mean, everything could be an illusion. We could pretend this is the Matrix. There's no such thing other than circumstantial evidence. And that's the only way you can convict any truth or any theory as being the truth or to be flawed. That's what we're judging here. We're judging its integrity, and it's beyond this reasonable doubt standard. And so I'm saying that the idea that suffering has value is a beyond reasonable doubt proven fact. That's a premise. And if you can't accept that premise, then we really have nothing to talk about. Go talk to the wind. Go talk to the walls. Because I got nothing to say to somebody who can't figure that out. I mean, it's just too fucking obvious. The evidence of your own experience is too obvious. The idea, the concept is not that difficult, and the idea that somehow, we can involve ourselves with a bunch of equals in a circumstance, and we can take and give and take and give and do all this exchanging with them in terms of their welfare, and to argue that somehow all of that only has subjective meaning to the participants is idiotic. I'm sorry, it's just fucking idiotic. It doesn't matter what you think you're accomplishing. What matters is what you actually do, what actually takes place in the world because of your interaction. Your intent is quite irrelevant. Your perception of whether it doesn't matter or it matters is irrelevant to the fact that it did matter, and this was the exchange rate for what you accomplished. And I'm saying that I just don't think there's any way to unravel the idea that the real core of all value in the universe is going to always come down to how did it affect sentient organisms? Did it harm more sentience than did it help? I mean, that's always going to be the equation. It's the only rational equation. There's no other alternative explanation of value that makes any sense whatsoever. That's the game. And it's unfortunately, that there's so many humans that apparently can't figure this simple thing out. And that's why they will lie and cheat and steal and be just motherfucking pricks, because they have no concept of how much suffering they're wasting and squandering and consuming for petty and minor satisfaction of their silly and preposterously stupid ambitions. Alright. Yeah. I really could go on and on. Let's see if there was anything else I just really had to say. But yeah, it's important to separate memes from reproduction, because they just don't reproduce the same way. They're not a genetic quality. And again, to be serious videos, there's people like that stupid guy. I really have learned to hate him. Stephen Ernest, I think it is, or something. What? So you believe, you really do, you believe that we genetically are either nice people or not nice people. You're so fucktarded that you think it's a genetic component. I mean, you really think that way. I mean, yes, it's just so fucking silly. So anyway, so till the next time and such and whatnot. And yeah, it's enough. All right, testing a new camera. It's got a bigger screen and such. Nice. Yeah, I like it. Anyway, let's see if it worked. The next 27 minutes. Holy shit. Yeah, that's the other thing, though. People complain about the length of the videos, and it's just so funny that they're doing it on a video where somebody's telling people to read 3 different books, whatever To Be Serious pointed to. A 40-minute video is just so much more burdensome than reading a 400-page book.